So please welcome Chris Williams. Chris presented to us last year about the birds of the Olympic Peninsula. And so tonight he's going to be talking to us about the birds of the Sonoran Desert, as he is currently down working at Saguaro National Park as a ranger. And Chris has a master's degree in environmental education, and he has been a ranger at North Cascades National Park, Olympic National Park, and now Saguaro National Park. So he's working his way across the country. So with that, Chris, thank you. And I will let you go ahead and share your screen. And it looks like you're all set up. So
yes.
Please go forth.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carla. And I hope everybody's having a great day. Happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Hearing everybody talk about, places like Simiamu and seeing long-tailed ducks and other things like that kind of makes me miss Washington a little bit. But I'm excited to share with you this new place that I've been in, well, new for me. And since we started with the land acknowledgement for the tribes in Washington, I will say that I am standing on the lands of the Pasquayaqui and the Tohono O'odham people down here in the Sonoran Desert. Yeah, this is a very, very special region. Now, as Carla mentioned, I am an interpretive ranger. I have been a ranger at North Cascades and Olympic National Park. After April, I'll actually be heading back to Washington. I haven't even told anybody this. I made this decision today, but I will be going back to North Cascades this summer. So I'll be back there in May. So folks want to see me there, see me there. But here at Saguaro, I still am within the education department here at the park. However, I work specifically in education. So I work with school groups. So here I am leading a field trip. I do field trips, work with youth groups, work with different clubs, hiking clubs and things, do things like leading folks pulling invasive species, doing outreach. I recently got to go and participate in the Super Bowl experience a few days ago. So lots and lots of different things here, which I'm extremely happy about and fortunate that I get to do this kind of work with my job. So this is a map of Saguaro National Park. It was hard to find a map that encompassed both sides. It's a very weird and kind of different national park in that it's split up into two districts. There's both the West and East district. I'm based out of the West, but I also do some work over on the East. And right smack dab in the middle of both of those, and in both of those divisions is the city of Tucson. So, much different than having, Marble Mount or Forks be your nearest town. However, there's this really, really large city. There's a decently sized city in the middle of the park, which makes this park pretty unique. It spans over 91,000 acres. So still fairly sizable. And it is located within the Sonoran Desert. Now, there are 4 deserts within North America. The Great Basin Desert is one of those, and that's the only one that I'd actually been to prior to coming down to the Sonoran Desert, which is the most northernmost desert that we have. We have the Mojave Desert, which is to the west of us, up in California, Nevada. We have the Chihuahuan Desert, which is to the east of us. And we have the Sonoran Desert, which encompasses southern Arizona, some of the state of Sonora, Mexico, Baja California, and southeast California. Spans over 100,000 square miles. And this is actually a picture I took. This is down at Pinacate Biosphere Reserve down in Mexico. Really, really neat spot. A bunch of teddy bear cholla in that photograph. And the Sonoran Desert is a little bit different from the other deserts in North America in that it doesn't receive as harsh of winters as those other deserts do. We get fairly mild winters. You know, we get rains off and on. I was just telling folks before this recording started that, you know, we've had kind of odd weather this week. It was raining all off and on all day yesterday. And tomorrow there's a slight chance of snow, which is not super common down here in this part of the desert. And in the summertime, which I haven't really spent any time in the summertime, it can often reach 118 degrees Fahrenheit, which me being used to Washington, I would have a hard time adjusting to that. Some say that you can bake cookies in your car in the summer, which would be kind of an interesting thing to do. Typically, the desert averages between 3 to 20 inches of rain. Here in Tucson, we get about 12 inches of rain annually. And it's also characterized by monsoon rains, which I would love to come back sometime in the summer and actually check out that. Really big storm clouds coming through the desert. Not necessarily lasting super long, but hard, intense rains, which can really drop the temperatures. And many of the species in the desert, many of the plant species will actually bloom during the monsoon rains. Pretty cool stuff. Coming down the desert directly from the North Cascades was kind of an adjustment. I oftentimes tell folks the first day I got out here, it was like 69 degrees or 70 degrees. I got out of my car in my current house, and I was like, oh my goodness, man, I'm dying, man, it's so hot. And you know, the dryness of my skin all the time. I was like, why is my skin always so dry? But that's just, you know, how different it is climate-wise to Western Washington State. Now, the Sonoran Desert is also a very, very diverse desert. So another thing that distinguishes it from the other deserts in North America is that it has the presence of legume trees, which are like mesquite trees. These are trees that are characterized by having really, really long roots that go deep into the ground to absorb moisture, and large columnar cacti. So this picture here is from Oregon Pipe National Monument, down south of us, a couple hours, pretty close to the border. Those are some Oregon pipe cacti. The saguaro cactus is a large cactus as well. But if you look at this image here, you can see that as you move up in elevation, you start to get into different biomes. Now, this desert has several pretty distinct biomes as it goes from sea level all the way up to a little bit over 10,000 feet. Here in the park, our tallest peak is about 9,000, I want to say. So it is a very diverse desert. When I got down here, I was pretty amazed at the diversity of plant life that I was able to see. I was like, wow, it's not really that barren. It's not really that void of life. Another interesting thing about the Sonoran Desert, which contributes to its diversity and its bird diversity, is the presence of these Madrean sky islands. Now, I haven't personally been to one of these sky islands yet. I'm still fairly new to the desert. I got here in November. A popular place folks like to go to get into this ecosystem is Mount Lemmon, which is on the photo to the right. You can see it's blanketed in snow there. There's sometimes the ski is like a ski hill that's open up there. Folks describe it as driving from Mexico all the way up to Canada, just in a short drive. But it is characterized by having spruce, fir, and pine trees. The temperatures can oftentimes drop significantly as you head up. So it can be a refuge for folks and other animals in the heat of the summer when the temperatures are just blazing. On the image to the left there is taken in the park itself, in the Rincon Mountains, which are over on the eastern side. So yeah, these sky islands, they're called sky islands because they're not contiguous habitats. They're essentially isolated forests that are on top of these mountain ranges that don't necessarily connect with one another, which is the reason why we call them the sky islands. Now, the desert has, the Sonoran Desert has over 300 species of cacti. However, the most famous and the most characteristic species of cactus that we have here is the saguaro cactus, reaching heights of over 50 feet, being able to live over 200 years. These cacti are what people mostly think of when they think about the Southwest and when they think about the desert. When I used to think about the desert and I used to think about cacti, I used to picture saguaro cacti, and I didn't even know what a saguaro was. In 1994, Saguaro National Park was actually created in order to protect the saguaro cactus, which is found within the Sonoran Desert region. So it doesn't have the biggest range, which is why they created this national park. Now, the saguaro cactus is what is known as a keystone species. And if folks are familiar with what a keystone species is, it's a species, whether it be a plant or an animal, that if one were to remove it from the ecosystem, it would have a drastic impact on the other living things in the area. So many animals will actually use saguaro for food, for shelter, for homes, for nesting. It's a very, very important cactus. I should also mention before I move on and start talking about some of the birds that, since time immemorial, the indigenous folks of the region would also harvest the fruits annually, and they typically fruit during the summer. And so they would harvest them. They'd make jams, they'd make syrups, they do things like that with the fruit. I had to try some jam once. It was pretty good. Had a nice figgy taste to it. So getting into some of the birds, one of the more common birds that I see around my house and around the desert is the Gila woodpecker. Now, these birds, like other woodpeckers, fly around in different trees, look for insects. However, as early as the winter, they will start excavating their nest sites, and will actually, you'll oftentimes see them drilling holes in cacti in order to make homes and things. And so other animals will also take refuge in those saguaro holes, either for nesting or also for protection against the sun. So another bird that is pretty, they can oftentimes find around the saguaro cacti is the white-winged dove. These birds absolutely love the fruit of the saguaro cactus. I forget what percentage, but a lot of the saguaro seed dispersal actually takes place from these birds, as well as other animals that eat the fruit. But they play an important role in dispersing the seeds of the cacti. They can oftentimes be seen flying around the desert, perched on top of telephone wires, on top of cacti. It's there standing next to a yellow-rumped warbler. Now, this is a bird I haven't seen. So I will say that having only been here a couple months, a lot of these birds I haven't yet seen. And these are not my pictures that you're seeing. Well, some of them were, but these specific ones I haven't taken yet. One day I'll get pictures of all these birds. The elf owl is the world's smallest owl. It is about the size of a sparrow. It hunts things like insects and really, really small things. And it will oftentimes use holes that were made by Gila woodpeckers. And I also forgot to mention that the other common woodpecker species that you'll see around the sorrel cactus is the gilded flicker, which is very similar in appearance to the northern flicker that we have in Washington. So yeah, elf owls, pretty small, pretty small bird, really cute looking. So I really hope to see one of these days. Now, besides the saguaro cactus, the other cacti species will be used by other birds as well. The cactus wren is the state bird of Arizona. I see these pretty much every day. You know, it's funny coming down to a new area. It takes a long time to really, well, at least for me, it takes me a while to really learn the birds. I'm really comfortable with birding in Pacific Northwest. However, coming down here, there's all these new birds, but that also means that I take pleasure in seeing like some of the most common birds, like the cactus wren. These are pretty large for a wren. Like when I first saw them, I was like, wow, that's a pretty large wren. And they will often make nests in cacti and other shrubs and small trees. Like this cactus wren in this photograph is actually in a jumping cholla, which I am terrified of because I haven't gotten hit by a cholla yet. However, the jumping cholla and the teddy bear cholla can really, really stick to you if you so much as brush against them. So kudos to these birds for being able to build nests in these spiky and somewhat dangerous plants. Now, this is a bird that many of us learned about from the Warner Brothers cartoon. However, they don't make the noises that they make in the cartoon. However, they can still run fairly fast. They are ground-dwelling birds in the cuckoo family that rarely fly. And get up to about 13 miles per hour or so. And they like to feed on lizards. They'll feed on snakes. Sometimes they'll go after rattlesnakes sometimes. Pretty common, very characteristic bird here of the desert. Very beautiful, very striking bird. The phainopepla is another bird that I see pretty much every day. I will oftentimes see them perched on ocotillo plants. They are sometimes referred to jokingly as the goth cardinal, but they can be found year-round throughout desert washes. If you see them, you'll sometimes see them in shrubs and small trees. And they really love mistletoe berries and other berries and seeds and things like that. Very cool bird of this region. Very pretty call that these birds make. So, of course, with the openness of this habitat that we have out here, we have lots of birds of prey. So, just like back there, we have our red-tailed hawks, we have our cougars and our sharp-shinned hawks. But the Harris's hawk is a pretty cool, unique bird of prey in that it hunts socially. So oftentimes when you see these birds, you're not typically going to see just one of these birds. You might see 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 birds perched on the same telephone line. And they will hunt cooperatively, which is pretty cool. I was at the Desert Museum, which is pretty close to me here, which if anyone ever visits Tucson, highly recommend checking that out. Great introduction to the Sonoran Desert. However, when they were doing their raptor free flight program, all the other birds, there's like 1 bird and 2 birds. Like they brought the Harris's hawks, and I look up and there's like 5 birds. They were coming out in like a mob. I was like, wow, this is really cool, man. Like all of these birds are like flying at once, and like seeing raptors hunt in a team cooperatively, I think is pretty cool. I've seen Harris's hawks used a lot in falconry. Folks really like using them in falconry. Pretty cool birds of prey. One of my favorite birds that I've gotten to see here so far is the crested caracara. Um, I will also mention, I forgot to say that one of the other reasons that this is such a good birding area, that we have like this great bird diversity is where we are based geographically. So we here in the Sonoran Desert in southern Arizona, there's a lot of species of birds and other animals that you would more associate more with Central and South America. And so previously, before coming here, I'd only seen caracara in like Central America, down in South America, but here we get them just based on where we are. And besides birds, we also get certain mammal species like quadrimundis, which are more seen in Central South America, as well as very rarely, I mean, there's like one jaguar that's known across the border, one ocelot that's known across the border. Peccaries or javelina, however you refer to them, that are also in this region. But moving back to the caracara is a really unique bird that's more related to falcons than anything. They, despite having a hawk-like appearance, they are a species of falcon that is very interesting in that they oftentimes will hunt on the ground as well, or you'll oftentimes see them on the ground as well. The very first time I saw one of these birds, I was actually driving through the reservation, and I look up and I see a bird with a white head, and my first instinct is like raptor with a white head. It's a bald eagle. I was like, well, it's not really bald eagle it's not really like a big bald eagle population down here. And I was like, oh wow, that's a caracara. Second time I saw one was also on the reservation. We were doing a trip with my coworkers, and one flew from a tree and it actually went and landed on the ground. So oftentimes, if these birds will hunt something, if they knock something to the ground, if something manages to escape, they can actually go and chase it down via their feet, which is kind of if you're a prey item, that'd kind of be a scary thing to have coming at you, this big bird running around on the ground, kind of menacing looking. So pretty cool bird here, the caracara, which luckily I've been able to see. Now, this is another bird that its family is more associated with Central and South America. So previously to coming here, I'd seen trogon in Ecuador. I'd seen quetzals, which we also get a species of quetzal here occasionally. I've seen quetzals in Costa Rica. Really tropical looking, very beautiful birds. However, we also get them here in southern Arizona. So places like Madera Canyon, and Chiricahua National Monument. Occasionally in the Rincon Mountains, I've heard, we get elegant trogons, which are more characteristic of higher up woodland, canyon, sycamore type habitat. You oftentimes see them higher up. They will also nest in cavities made by other birds. Very, very beautiful birds, and this family has a lot of significance in indigenous culture down in Central and South America. So one bird I really need to get out and see while I'm here. And another thing that we get here a lot are hummingbirds. So we have about 17 species of hummingbirds that come and visit southern Arizona several times during the year, which is a lot. For me, in Western Washington, I'm used to just seeing the rufous and the annas, as well as some of the other species that we get out there as well. However, down here, we get quite a few different species of birds and of hummingbirds, from the broad-tailed hummingbird to the costas to the black-chinned to the broad-billed. to some of the other ones that I'm forgetting. This area is pretty good for spotting and finding hummingbirds, which is pretty cool. And a lot of them will come up during the spring, summer. Just like a lot of our other migratory birds will come up during that time. However, some do tend to stay year-round as well. So we have this great diversity of birds here. It's really special, and it's really wonderful that we're able to see all of these things. However, just like anywhere, we face our own threats out here in the desert. Over on the left, that is a picture of a patch there that's just full of buffalo grass, which is an invasive species. It's probably the most pervasive and problematic of the invasive species that we have out here. It is a species of grass that was brought down from like Asia and Africa, and it outcompetes a lot of native species, kind of chokes them out, and it burns really, really hot down here. So before before the species was brought down, it became a problem. Like fires weren't too big or large of a concern down in this region. However, because of the presence of buffalo grass, the threat of fire has been exacerbated. So this is a fire here around Tucson. And another thing, of course, being climate change. So along with that, warming temperatures can definitely have an impact on the species here in the deserts. If you think about the fact that many, animals might take refuge up higher up in the mountains, where it's cooler. If the temperatures rise, they might not have any other places to go. Cats, just like I mentioned last year in my presentation, cats are a big problem anywhere where they're able to go out and roam free. They kill some billion number of birds each year, so make sure that you keep those indoors so they don't go out and take out endangered species. But yeah, again, climate change is a big thing. The average rainfall that we receive here in the desert has decreased annually every year since 1970. So that's a big thing. But things that we can do, keeping cats indoors. We actually, this past Saturday, I led a group of volunteers called the Cactus Rangers. It's like a group of high school age students. I led them out here. We actually pulled buffalo grass. We got out there and we pulled this invasive species, which felt very fulfilling. So you can always volunteer to do that. If anyone is out here in the Tucson area, believe on the east side of the park, there are buffalo grass pulls every Saturday. So my coworker, when I was talking about this program with her, wanted me to throw that plug in there. And other things that we can do are going out and making our own observations. Birding is a great way to actually contribute to ongoing science. There are online databases that we can go out and record our observations into, which can help with overall data collection, as scientists aren't necessarily always able to go out and get those observations themselves. So you can do a lot of citizen science by just going out, counting birds. You can participate in the Christmas bird count, backyard bird count, doing things like that. And it's also great for you as well. I got into birding when I was about in middle school, high school. Got a lot better at it when I was in college. I'm still learning. I'm still getting better at it. But it's great. It's great for mental health. During COVID, a lot more folks got out and started birding because they didn't really have much else to do, and they're like, "Man, this is actually pretty cool." So get out and do that. Get a pair of binoculars. You can use your eyes. If you don't have a pair of binoculars, and you never know what you might see. You might see some cool birds. Maybe one of the birds that I saw that I was talking about here on this program. You might see mammal, javelina, coyote, or back in Washington, harbor seal, elk, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's just really great to get out there and to see what you see. So
You don't call until just
um,
after something now.
someone's
But I'm
there.
into
But
Audubon. No, wait.
yeah, but yeah, I thank you all for coming out to this program here. We appreciate it. We all enjoyed it. Did I stop my screen share right now?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. That was really great. Very, very interesting. And I'm sure it will encourage people to get down there and do some birding. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And we do have a bunch of questions and a bunch of comments. So I will go back to the beginning here. So one question is, do you have a favorite section, east or west portion of the park?
Do I have a favorite section? I'm, because well, not just because, but like, I'm based over here on the west side. So I guess I'm somewhat biased, but also I think that, the west side feels a little bit more separate from town. In between us and town, we have the Tucson Mountain Park, and we also have the Desert Museum. And we're a little bit further from town than the east side. I think we have some more saguaros. So I personally like the west side, but the east side's also great. I need to spend more time.
Cool. So let's see. John Day asks, he's been to Saguaro several times and spent a fair amount of time there, but never seen a greater roadrunner. Where and when would you recommend going to see one of those?
I will say that I mentioned that they're common. I don't see them super often. However, one place where I saw some that were like pretty comfortable around people, which I assume means that they might have been getting fed by people. But I saw several around Sabino Canyon, which is a really cool spot here in town. So Sabino Canyon was the one where I got some of my best views, probably because they were a little bit habituated to folks. But some of it is a little bit by chance. I've seen them running across the road, or like sometimes I'll see them, but like it'll be a brief encounter where they'll just be like running off into the brush. So some of it also is a bit by chance. But I have, you're patient enough, you might eventually see some.
Okay. Liza, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Liza.
Right. Lisa.
Lisa says that she was there last week and saw a roadrunner and a male cardinal.
Yeah, the roadrunner at Sabino, right where you said, and maybe Pam can remember, the cardinal was, I want to say, a Sparrow Canyon. Does that ring a bell? It's in the neighborhood, maybe 20, half an hour away. There were pools of water, and then we saw, I thought it was a female roadrunner, female cardinal, but it was that other bird you were talking about, the pretty gray looking bird with the kind of chunky. Pardon?
So I mentioned the Phainopepla. There's also a bird species called the Purluxia, which looks pretty similar to the cardinals as well. So they're grayer, they have some red on their face. So could have been a Phainopepla, it also could have been one of those.
Yeah, I think it was the Phainopepla. You showed a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it was really cool though, that gorgeous, but the Sabino Canyon going all the way up to the top, that was stunning. Just gorgeous. Lots of birds and lots of little itty bitty beginning bloom. And the rangers down there thought this was going to be a super bloom this spring in April. The water was stuff like stunning cactus going wild.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, I want to come back. Thank you.
Okay, and Ursula Valdez. Hi, Ursula. I'm so glad you're attending tonight. One of our former presenters. Ursula says she was in Phoenix a few years ago and saw Roadrunners at the Botanical Garden. So just another spot.
Mhm.
And your mother says she saw a Gila woodpecker from Chris's house.
She definitely did. And we also saw a ladder-backed woodpecker out there as well. It was actually the first one I'd ever seen. But she definitely saw quite a few Gila woodpeckers from my house.
And Julie Kinder says, in the photo of the white-winged dove, what was the bird to the left? And Kim Nelson responded, yellow-rumped warbler.
Mm-hmm.
So, hi, Kim.
Hey, Kim.
And let's see. So John Farnsworth says that elf owls are cute, but his favorite is the pygmy owl, probably because it is diurnal.
Mm. That's a good reason right there. Being able to see them makes a
And then-
difference.
And then Kim says they used to hunt hummingbirds at my feeder in San Diego.
The pygmy owls.
Kim was it the pygmy owls?
No, we were talking about Roadrunners then. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Hectic question. Sorry. I put a lot of comments in there because I was just like so excited about his presentation. So ignore my yellow crop questions. John answered that. Still mind blowing. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, let's see. John Day says one does not enjoy a run-in with the cholla. And
Choya. Yeah, that yeah, no, I'm still trying not to run into those. You know, I go on runs out here a lot and I hike out here a lot and had to get a couple of them out of some students that have been with me and seen videos, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that.
It's supposed to be a little poem. One does not enjoy running with a choya.
Yeah.
Can I jump in there?
sure.
Chris, I've taught dozens of classes down in the Saguaro. And one thing I learned very early on is to carry a large tooth comb with me.
Mm.
And I don't usually carry a comb, but a comb is a great way to remove a choya spine from students.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for throwing that in there. Yeah, and all our first aid kits, we have combs in there to get them out. And you know, I don't use a comb really either with my hair. It doesn't really do a whole lot, but I always carry one even when I'm going out running and whatnot. You know, I also, it's a little different here. You know, I also run when I go out for runs. I also run with one headphone in here just because I want to listen out for snakes. Well, a little worried about, you know, rattlesnakes and things. There's not too many, not many of those over in Western Washington. So lots of different landmines here.
And let's see, and then there was some discussion about the yellow crop on the Caracara. So if people saw that on the photo on the left. And John pointed out that the crested Caracara is a member of the falcon family and says this is controversial, apparently.
Oh,
Yeah,
I haven't heard that.
They don't look like a falcon particularly.
Not really, no. They really don't. They're very weird birds. They almost just they feel like they almost should just belong in their own group, their own weird group of raptors there.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Mhm.
about 1/3 of the ornithological taxonomists say that the Caracara it's a group unto itself,
Hmm.
and about 2/3 of us say that it's a falcon.
Mm.
We're still arguing about that one. We probably will be for a few years.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a question about whether trogons are residents or migratory, and Keith and Jan respond that they are migratory. Occasionally one or two will overwinter.
Yeah. Yeah, you still, if you go on eBird, you'll still find like reports of people seeing them out in Madera Canyon and Chiricahuas. So like those some of them will stick around. However, later on in the year, in a few months is when more of them will start to come, and still really want to see one out here,
And then a question, are the saguaros still being poached?
Sometimes, they have like figured they've like started doing certain things. Like I've heard that some places they put like little like chips in them to keep them protected from people. But yeah, occasionally they will still be poached. Particularly like smallish saguaros are not typically going to go and like poach like the really big ones, because how are you going to move the really big one? But sometimes ones, especially some of the ones on the sides of the roads, will get poached sometimes. I don't know like how big of an issue that still is or how common that is, but luckily, from most of my coworkers are from the area. From what I've heard is that they are, they more than any other plant are kind of pretty revered here in town. And so like it's illegal to like cut one down, and people oftentimes sometimes get rid of other species but try to save the saguaros, like either they're around buildings, around houses and things. So yeah.
Cool.
I understand that the current fine in Arizona for theft of a saguaro is $100 per foot.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So
It's not really very much, frankly.
Right.
It's yeah, it's not, unfortunately. Don't go cutting any saguaros down. Interesting thing about saguaros, so that you can actually plant saguaros and have them grow. I mean, not y'all in Washington, that if you tried to grow one and out in Skagit area, it wouldn't grow very well. But here, if you have the habitat for it, you can actually grow them from seed. However, they take really, really long to grow. So if you try to grow one from seed, you should make sure that you have a decent amount of years ahead of you, because it can take them about 10 years to grow an inch, and if they have any arms or anything on them, they're about 50 or so years old, which is kind of crazy. They grow super slow.
Okay, Julie is asking, what time of year do you recommend birding in Saguaro National Park?
That's a great question. Just like everywhere, it kind of depends on what kinds of birds you're looking for. But around spring and summer, I want to say summer is somewhat difficult because of the temperatures. I don't really want to be out birding in triple digits, and a lot of birds that want to be out in triple digits. But I've heard during and after the monsoon rains, this is a pretty good time, just because a lot of things start blooming. And a lot of birds are out feeding flowers and different fruits. So I've heard that's a great time. And you can also go up high into the mountains to escape the heat. So I would say probably like spring, summer. So it's a good time.
Okie dokie. And Kim is asking, when are you going to be returning to the North Cascades?
So my season here ends, this position goes through April. And I'll start work there in like early May. So I'm still figuring some things out with like logistics and getting out there, and like when exactly I'll end, when exactly I'll start. But yeah.
Well, we'll keep track of you when you get here.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can come and join us sometime.
Yeah, hopefully. I would love that.
Let's see, and then a bunch more thoughts on where to see Roadrunners, Sabino Canyon and Las Cruces. Let's see, and tons and tons of people saying that was a great presentation, and thank you to you. And let's see, wow, lots of things here.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Neil says the crested caracara doesn't have dark eyes like all the falcons we see here. That's interesting. And Allison says the caracara looks really prehistoric when you see them on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And John Day is suggesting that we just need to wait a few years and we'll be able to grow saguaro here.
Oh man, that's a little bleak.
Yeah, dystopian there. But
Yeah.
let's see, no, it's probably reality. But let's see, Ursula, who is a biologist, Ursula Valdez, says caracaras are in the same family of falcons, but in different genera. So they are related, but not true falcons. And Kim was waiting for the falcon expert to weigh in. Okay. Oh, and then Keith and Jan Wiggers, who are in Tucson right now, are saying the local birding festivals are in August and they are very worth attending.
Mm.
And John Farnsworth says the monsoon rains in Arizona occur in August. Okay. Wow, let's see, there's tons of messages here. Thank you so much. The vermilion flycatcher is Wendy Patterson's, one of her favorites.
I'm excited to see one. Haven't seen one yet.
So, okay, I think that's it. So if there are no other questions, we will let you go so you can enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And thank you so much, Chris. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you all for joining in. You know, it was interesting. It's different talking about these birds. This is the first time I've given this talk, so I'm glad you all liked it so much.
Yeah, that was really, really great. And we will all want to go down there now. Okay, well, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see folks next month for our March presentation where Jeff Kidd will be speaking to us about rough-legged hawks. So back in the Northwest. So thank you again. And this will be recorded, so we'll get it up on our website and you can watch it again if you want. So
Sweet. Thank y'all, and happy Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Everybody's hearts. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's night.
Take care.